I'm outside. I just want to drink coffee and smoke. And try and wrap my head around what happened today with this quote-unquote court. Of course, Mickey. Yeah, I know you miss those days. You miss me out here, don't you? Mickey's saying, why aren't you outside? Like the good old days. Hmm? Right? Hey, Mickey the gardener cat. Okay.
You want that last hot dog?
No. Just keep an eye on Amari. I'm just doing a video while I'm coming in.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna call Jude.
Okay, well, I want you to just keep an eye on Amari, okay? I don't want him bouncing off the couch. Okay. Anyway. After this video, my son's room's over there. He's trying to give me moral support, right? Because he knows what's going on with the court thing, but, you know, I'm still annoyed with him, right? Anyway. It's all kosher. Everything's kosher. After this, people, I have a long-ass video of me trying to sign on. In terms of this online meeting, right? And then Tisha came, she tried, and then Rhea came, and she tried, and nothing was working. Eventually, it happened, but the first one we did with, what is that called? Telephone, because we couldn't do the MS Team, the video conference. Would I consider that what I went through today to be court in the traditional sense of how we view court and how we think about court and how we participate in court? No. I'd say it was more like a therapy session, but only the jailer was sitting in the room. Well, everybody's calling me fantastical, or saying I'm not being fantastical. In other words, I over-exaggerate on my allegations. For example, the illegal embalming of ShaMay, to which this judge, in his personal belief and understanding of what the healthcare system represents to him and his generation, he just couldn't accept the fact that this could be going on in the province of British Columbia, Canada, and therefore chose to ignore it completely. And anytime I tried to say, well, you know, like, for example, I got pictures, yes, they don't, that's not what the hospital's for, you know, they wouldn't do that, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, yeah, I got pictures, I can prove it, I can do it through exposure, and I can do it through Zoom. And then you apply that to literature, like writing, like documents, right? In terms of, there's, you know, when a body decomposes, there's certain stages that it goes through, and even though a body is embalmed, it still goes through it, people. They can touch up the makeup, they can sew up the lip, and they can put an orifice plug in the back of their throat, but they can't stop the decomposition stage at this point. In terms of technology, right? So, because I can't have, well, it's like the opportunity. I'd like to think it's a right, because I truly do believe what I say. And I truly do believe what I'm seeing in these pictures when I go as far as to document blisters under her, like in her skin, because the body starts to blister. She was blistering so bad, people, why do you think they were like, you know, it can get ugly. You have to disconnect the machines. It can get ugly. Well, because the body's decomposing. A body can't lay on a bed for 9 days and decompose without smelling. There is only one way to prevent smell, and that's to embalm it. And even then, like I said, they have to do their freaking touch-ups. And because her organs were removed, I don't know, like when Sierra died, supposedly her organs, on the 19th day when I finally got to identify her body in a legitimate sense, to which I told the judge, right? She didn't look anything like ShaMay. She hardly looked decomposed in general. Well, mind you, she was in a, cold storage, right? But besides that point, people, right, like, her body was nothing as to what was going on, like, with ShaMay's body. And I asked the funeral director why it looked so, I want to say, almost pristine, right? In terms of a dead body for 19 days. Like, it should be turning black because she wasn't embalmed, right? The blue and black and greens and all that other stuff. And she said, well, maybe not. It was starting to show like a light green hinge or so at some point within the body itself, but not like what I imagined I'd be looking at. It was nothing like it. And she said it was because apparently her organs had been, autopsied on and thrown into a bag and then just put in her gut, and somehow that stopped the decomposition of her body in terms of what it would be normally after 19 days of being dead. And the only thing that I can contribute it to be as to why it was in the state that it was is because they had her in cold storage. To what temperature? I don't know. But anyway, besides that point, I mean, this is where they call me fantastical. Not a fanatical, but a fantasticist, okay? Right? Because I'm adamant about what I believe, and as far as I'm concerned, what I know. And they're mocking me, literally mocking me. So here I am, in front of a woman that looks like Julian's mother, only with a different hairstyle. So you can only imagine how we're feeling, right? And what do you call it? She wants to throw it all out, right? And she brought in her case law and started telling stories about somebody else and how they were erratic or whatever, fantastical or whatever with their story, and therefore because they were that way, whatever I got to say that's fantastical is equal to and deserves the same treatment. In other words, throwing it out without really fully hearing the story, or never mind looking at the documents, or better yet, doing a full, thorough investigation on multiple levels. We're going for justice here, people, but there is no justice for ShaMay as of today, okay? Because the judge refused that the Fraser Health Authority and their staff would do anything nefarious under their mandate in terms of providing a safe service to the public. He doesn't even want to think about it for a second. So therefore, he's got a Puritan. Our healthcare system is run on Puritans. The people that do no harm, they're perfect, they're pristine, they shine with a glowing light. You can't get any better than a Puritan. He broad swept the health authority. I don't care which freaking health authority, because this is systemic in terms of what I'm fighting against, right? Through my experiences and whatnot, right? In terms of what's happened to my family and how I interpret it. And he just, no, it would never happen. He made a judgment right then and there and said that it would never happen, that no hospital, no Fraser Health or no worker, none of that would ever illegally embalm a body. And they just hopscotched around the idea of it being pillaged first, organs first. And even when I brought up the fact that I offered to donate ShaMay's organs, but I was told that I couldn't because of the so-called quote-unquote cocaine, and then even the Attorney General's assistant said, oh, well, you know, it's drugs. And I'm like, no, or is it judge, whatever. No, they take the organs from everybody and anybody these days, okay? They've been doing it for a long freaking time. And so, you know, you can pull up documents around that throughout the United States of America, and I'm sure you can find something like that in Canada where it specifically states that they can do it because they're doing it. And I said, no, that's not true. And then, even then, at that time, they settled for the eyes. That woman on the phone, I got video on it, people. I got the monologue on it, people. Phoned me up and said, oh, all we can take is the eyes. You can sign the paperwork on the day that when, you know, we pull the plug. The official plug, that is. I said, fine, no problem, because I know Murray's cross-eyed, and I think ShaMay would like that, to know that her eyes are helping somebody else. On the day they pulled the plug, well, they didn't pull the plug. They shut off their embalming machine that was running the fluid through those tubes that I have documented, to which the judge doesn't want to see, because he can't fathom the idea that this is what they're doing in our hospitals. So therefore, I'm expected just to drop it, and don't talk about it no more, because now I've become a fantastical. Do you know how pissed off I am, people? I am so pissed off. Because it doesn't help nobody. I even got down as far as to grovel to that Attorney General's assistants. And, you know, you gotta watch that boo-boo bitch word, right? But, you know, I got to, like, because you get near the end, you know, and everybody got all hot. This is the hottest year in the freaking summer, and the house is baking with a bunch of kids running around, and, you know, and just whatever, right? And, you know, and so, like, I just got to the end, and I said, you know, I'm asking for boo-boo help, people. Right? And that woman that looked like Julian's mother, who abandoned Amari a long time ago, she sat there, didn't say anything, just moved around a little bit, made it look like she was interested for a second. But as soon as we were done doing whatever we were doing, she jumped back on and said, yeah, no, just carry on, Judge. We want to throw it out based on this, and this. And I'm like, you cold bitch. That's all I could think about was, you cold motherfucking bitch. You know, you're the Attorney General's office, the Solicitor Attorney General's office. You know, you're sitting there with the judge who tries to tell himself he has no freaking powers, when in fact he does. Listen to this one. Okay. So, you know, like, right, so for whatever groveling, if you want to call it that, you know, pleading with the government to freaking help me because I can't do this by myself, right? That's what they're there for. They're there to protect the public, people, to prevent heinous crimes from happening to us, right? Okay, we know how it goes, right? So, here's the funny thing, though. For a man that has no power, listen to this one, because, you know, I'm calling for investigations on multiple levels, not just one area, okay? You know, he like I said, it was more like a counseling session, because my life is so mixed up, right? In terms of, thank you. Those are my racks for our little grow room in the X Club. They're here. I got 2 of them. And once I set them up, well, you know, we're going to try and set up. Do you need something?
Oh, just taking the photos.
Oh, okay. I'm just doing a video.
Oh, you're all good.
Yeah, that's for my hydroponics.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm going to try and do that for a while. Yeah, that's Mickey.
You have a good day.
Yeah, you too. Thank you. So, anyway. He was, you know, right? Obviously the government's not interested in doing an investigation. They're trying to throw it out. And this is what he was trying to tell me. And then I reminded him that somewhere in the original notice of civil claim, I wrote in there where either a judge like him or a government like the Attorney General or the Solicitor, Attorney General, Solicitor, the public solicitor. Oh my God, I have to read it over and over. I get it. I always just mix it up. But anyway, the two different the two different attorney generals, right? You got the public safety and solicitor general, and you've got the attorney general. Okay. They can do it, people. They can do it because we're getting into criminal law here. That's what their job is, right? I tried to. And of course I got Tisha nattering my ear, don't be so, just go ahead and just be polite and just be careful what you say. And I'm like, oh my God. And Rhea's like, yeah, you got it, But, like, when he tried to blow it off, like there was nothing that he could do in terms of taking it further than where we're at with it when it comes to those deeper files that only they can get, right? He said he couldn't request that because he didn't have the power. And I told him, I said, well, no, in the original notice of claim, it's written there that you do, and right along with your, partner right next to you. Her ministry has the power to do it, right? And then to brush that off, he turned around and he said, yeah, well, that was on an amended. In other words, once you strike it out in an amendment, it becomes null and void. And I told him, no, it didn't. Right? Like, no, just because you told me to draw a line through it doesn't mean it's insignificant and it's not valid. Okay? Because that was done under duress. It wasn't anything that I ever wanted to do. But of course I didn't take it to that level by explaining it to him like that. I just said, no, it's there. It's always been there. Right? And he got, he took a break then. It's time for a recess. But here's the thing. For a man with no power, okay, can't call investigations because whatever chance there was striked out through the first judge that I came into contact and told me to remove 98% of my notice of civil claim in the original sense. Okay? 98%. So yeah, you would assume that judge's power would be striked out. Right? Because they didn't leave me much left room to say anything. But it didn't mean it took away his power. His power. It just doesn't. Not in my mind. So, okay. Before we start, I'm doing a video. I'm blowing off some steam here. Yeah. Before we start the kind of a court session, right? Everybody getting on. And he says he has up to, in terms of documents, to 171. 100 to 170 is Exhibit A, with 170 pieces of individual information that relates to a lifetime of a family, in part of what we're talking about when it related mainly to Uncle John. Okay? 171 onward to something like 340 pages. Okay? Related also, but that was what was on the PDF file that I ended up putting onto paper file, right? And then submitted it. That was the second time around with the court, right? And, my distraction from the basement and whatnot, right? Anyway, we were under the impression that he didn't have it. So we had to clarify what he did have before we could proceed. It turned out, he said, he had both copies of the paper copy, Exhibit 1, Exhibit 2, and he had the flash drive. The only thing is, people, I never gave him a flash drive. I told him that. I said, how could you possibly get a flash drive when I never gave you one? Because the registry wouldn't allow me to submit it. And then when I tried to send the PDF files or video recordings or whatever those files were on the flash drive through their server, right, through the court registry server, it came back telling me that the files were too large. Okay? I'm assuming that the format was okay, but definitely the files were too large. So I was under the assumption that he never got those recordings and other, anything that wasn't in paper form. He said he had it. He said he had the flash drive. So for a man who has no power, how the heck did he get the freaking flash drive, and who did he get it from? That's what I'm thinking. Serious. Just saying, people. But I don't think it makes any difference. No. Okay, so anyway, what did he end up doing? Let's just focus on this guy for a while. What did he end up doing is like I said, it was kind of like a counseling session for me, because he started to categorize just like what Rhea did. I came in with whatever I came in with. She went through it with me, took what she thought was more impertinent in terms of, I guess, those so-called material facts, knew what to listen for or look for, so that when it was passed on to the next person, like the judge or the Attorney General's office or whoever, it was, I guess, easier to interpret and to, I don't want to say rely on it, but it's less apt to have the emotional riff-raff that's attached to it, as if I was to do it by myself. Well, first of all, I don't even know how to do half of this stuff. I just do. Right? And then she did, and then I followed up with the second affidavit, put my 2 cents in there, and it's reading pretty good now, right? But the thing is, what this judge wants me to do, because let's focus on what he did first. So he took everybody, well, not everybody. He didn't take everybody, people. He really should have, but he didn't. That's okay. We're dealing with the most injured at this point. So obviously Uncle John. Then it went to Sierra. Then it went to Andre. Then it went to ShaMay. And then it went to Amari. Okay, so he's like trying to figure out exactly where everybody falls with the ongoing gang stalking, to which, of course, the Attorney General's office doesn't want to acknowledge. And I don't even know if the judge wants to acknowledge it, but definitely the Attorney General's office doesn't want to acknowledge it, because it's too fantastical to think that the public union sector would target poor people. God forbid if they ever targeted poor people, because they're Puritans. Don't you know that by now? I'm just being sarcastic, right? But that's the conditions I'm working under, okay? I'm dealing with people that think that whoever serves the public is a Puritan, and therefore, when anyone comes with anything fantastical, they're right? And warrants to be ignored. And then which leads into mistreatment, which leads into abuse, which leads into early death, which leads into the same kind of behavior that facilitates illegal organ harvesting in the first place, whether this particular judge wants to believe it or not. And being that we're dealing with another Sonia Johnson here, in a sort of kind of way, it's interesting. You know what? They threw in a black woman that looked like Sonia, so they can say that they're not being discriminatory against my family, as she's being a hard-knock nail, saying, go to jail, that's it, throw it out of court, and fuck off, boo-boo off. Is that it? Is that it? Tell me how is the government helping the public by silencing the victims, people? Because if I allow this to continue, to which I kind of have to, because I'm being told that I can't prove that ShaMay was embalmed. So therefore, because I so-called can't prove it, because the judge won't accept a picture or anything else that I might submit along the way that's in relation to that picture, therefore it makes him right to allow other people to quite possibly fall victim to the same kind of behavior, because he never took the time to investigate or use his powers, even though he's, you know, passing around flash drives. Like, where did he get the flash drive from, people? I didn't give it to him. I didn't submit it. The courthouse wouldn't take it. Right? But he was trying to be helpful. He had more patience. He had more patience. He actually took off his glasses and was thinking there for a while and scratching his head. Not literally scratching his head, but I could see that he was making an effort to look at, I guess, the deeper issues in terms of the harm and injury that has occurred over the years, and then in his mind, how it would apply to law, being that he was a lawyer at one point in the past and now he's a judge. So of course he has a bigger scope and understanding of law, but it doesn't mean that it should give him the green light to what's that? You know, like I was saying yesterday in the greenhouse, you know, we live in a society where there's the predators and there's the victims. That's it. You're either one or the other. He's siding with the other people. He's not trying to protect the victims. And if he is, what? Does he feel disempowered because he now can't call an investigation because I drew a line through it? Like, come on. Come on. That's a really weak card to play. But I guess if it wins their hand and it assures that money train, that, you know, whatever, you know, how it comes about in terms of that assembly line of bodies that's connected to a whole bunch of money. Because he's, you know, he severed me, people. He's severed me. Not only has he severed me from the justice of ShaMay, in terms of she was illegally harvested and her body was illegally embalmed. There's no other reason why they would embalm her unless they had to take her to the hospital and open her up and take out her organs. The embalming was to hide the illegal organ harvesting. Okay, let's get off that. So anyway, he tried to break up the different stories. What he said about Amari was, you know, like when I wrote the notice of civil claim, you know, am I asking for this, and this person? And it's not so much that I'm asking, oh, give me this for this, and give me that for that, and give me this for that person. It's more like, this is what's happened to us as individuals within the family. And whatever is being dealt with should be dealt with as a whole, because I'm not forgetting about Brooks, and I'm sure in the heck not forgetting about my son, nor Tisha. It's just Sierra, Andre, Amari, and Uncle John, and ShaMay. That's 5 people. That's 5 people got severely injured because of the nefarious activities that go on, and they didn't like it when I say the public union sector. But that's why we have the Attorney General and the Public Solicitor Safety General. And I reminded both of them that that's what they're there for, to monitor their employees, because, oh, I want to call her Sonia. Maybe we will for a nickname. I got Andrew the Dragon, so why don't we just call this woman Sonia? Well, we got Sonia telling me I need to take it back to freaking Fraser Health Authority, as if, and that's what I told her. I said, no way. I'm not going through that by myself again. I reminded her that it's the government who pays the health authority. It's the government who oversees the health authority. It's the government that is supposed to control its employees within the health authority. It doesn't matter what health authority. It doesn't matter if it's Fraser Health Authority or Island Health Authority. They need to go to the Victoria General Hospital and do some research. That's what I told her, people. Through the judge, being the mediator with this counseling. As I got now Tisha and Rhea getting mad at me because I'm And it's hot in there like a freaking sauna yet. Initially, I was just going to read the Power of Attorney Act and the notes that I took on it, just back to back to back to back to back. You know, if there's a citation, I'd say, and this is where we're talking about mail fraud under this fucking section of the Power of Attorney Act. This is what we're talking about here under this section. Because, you know, to jog my memory, right? You have to remember, people, I didn't write this stuff until 2016, 17. It took me almost a year to write it. Well, yeah, I started in 16. My family was imploding. Everybody wanted to kill themselves when they took Uncle John, for crying out loud. And I'm supposed to take it back to the health authority? With Uncle John or with ShaMay or what? I told that judge, I've been fighting for Uncle John for a long, long time. And now they want me to sacrifice ShaMay and just stick to the facts. The facts is, I wanted to donate her organs. They said I could at first. Then they phoned me back and said, no, I couldn't. All I could do was her eyes. And that I could sign the form on the day that they were going to pull the freaking plug. Turn off their machine. I went to go sign the forms. I'm asking if the investigation has been started, right? And I'm signing the form for an autopsy. I'm asking, me, myself, and I'm asking for a forensic autopsy, being, especially now that they're not donating her organs, but I can still donate her eyes. And then they refused to allow me to sign her eyes and said, no, they're contaminated too. And then I get her medical files, and I'm reading in her medical files, and they flip the script and turn around and said that I denied them access to donation. I said no. They said I'm the one that said no to donating her organs. That was it. Do you see how they lied? And this Sonia wants to throw it out. Why are we not surprised? And if I have the audacity to come back, I should take it to the Fraser Health Authority office and forget about her freaking department, because they're so pristine, all they have to do is just sit there and do nothing all day long. Seriously. If they're not protecting the public, what are they there for, people? So anyway, he said about Amari that whatever was going on with Amari, he tried to tell me that Amari was separate and that I should treat him as separate and that I shouldn't merge him in with the overall gang stalking of my family, because he was thoroughly 100% insulted when I expressed to him, and he finally clued in that what I was saying was that at the time of Amari's birth, he was purposely injured, okay, people? They dragged out her pregnancy, her labor for 5 days, sent her home for 2 days out of the 4 days, and gave her morphine and told her to go home and take it and come back if it gets worse. She'd come back, they send her home. And then when she goes back, they drag it out to the last minute. Okay, he said that I should be phoning Vancouver, if anything, around for an injury lawyer. Birth injury lawyer. I said there are none. I tried that. A long time ago. Everybody just wants a freaking car accident. That's all they want, people. And if you can find one, you need at least $50,000, okay, before, as a retainer, before they'll even help you. So what does that tell you? And we know that as soon as Amari was born, he was plugged into that hip surveillance program with that research study that was started in 2015 and came into full bloom in 2016, to where Amari was born in 2017. So they were just filling the slot as they were retaliating against ShaMay as because of what was going on with Uncle John. I told that to the judge, and that's when I become fantastical. So basically, Sonia just insisted and continued to insult me. I don't even know her name. I can't remember it. But Sonia suits her. being her position in all this as a jailer with no justice. Yeah. So basically, whatever happened today, if nothing happens for ShaMay in terms of justice, quote unquote justice, that just gives the government permission to continue harvesting human bodies against our will as they play mind boo-boo free, right? And lie about it as they do it and cover it up and call the victims fantasticals as if it makes it all okay, so they can do it again and again and again and again and again. And everybody that becomes victim to that cycle it dies in vain. For everybody that becomes victim to that cycle dies in vain. Sonia wants me to go take CIBC Bank back to court because apparently that file is still open. Well, CIBC Bank has been quiet for a very long freaking time, don't you think? And why would I want to face CIBC Bank by myself, people? Why? Any more than go back to Fraser Health Authority. That's what I told Sonia. I'm asking the government to help because I can't go against the freaking CIBC Bank by myself any more than I can go against Fraser Health Authority by myself. To snuff out crime, to clean out the swamp. They don't want to clean out the swamp. They like it looking just the way it is. The memory of ShaMay laying on that bed 9 days later. Apparently so, don't you think? And then accuse me and say I photoshopped that shit. Okay. I don't know. You know, if that's the case, people, I'll just do the YouTube and the BitChute with ShaMay and we'll get justice one way or another, okay? If the material facts are only the facts, where they got it listed where I said I didn't want her organs donated, then I'm coming freaking back, because that's not true. That's a material fact. You see, this is where Rhea is helping me to separate myself from whatever it is that I'm caught up in. But I will never drop the ball for ShaMay, for justice, for what happened to her, in terms of how she was set up, murdered, and then harvested. And it's all being facilitated through government workers, one way or another, through the private sector. With the ones with the big money. That's justice. Even if it means it's just a video up on YouTube and BitChute as backup. So they're not even acknowledging Amari's injuries as a possibility that Fraser Health Authority staff were retaliating through that medical record, which listed that she had no prenatal care, which I told them that, you know, in her medical records it's listed that she had no prenatal care. That's where Sonia worked. It was at the prenatal clinic. And Julian's mother probably still does, who knows. But she came into a big windfall, so she probably retired. Oh, jeez. And that if I was to do anything for Amari, it has to be an independent case with birth injury, in terms of the material facts. The mother was sent away for 4 days. They dragged out, that's the material facts, people. Dragged out the labor for hours and hours and hours, and then rushed her into a C-section after his heart dropped and never came back. That's all material facts. I can do it under a different lawsuit, but I can't do it under this lawsuit, because if I do it under this lawsuit, in terms of the ongoing gang stalking of my family, for each family there is a story. That just happens to be Amari's story. They want to remove Amari's story from the family. Why is that, people? Why do they want to remove Amari's story from the family, when in fact that's probably what happened, in terms of, yeah, they were retaliating. Okay? How do you injure families? You injure children, you injure teenagers, you injure the elderly. What? They injured John. What's the difference between an old person and a newborn? They injured my teenagers. What's the difference between my teenagers and Andre at 28 months old? There is no difference. Amari is part of the family. He has his story, which is just as important as everybody else, but this judge, for whatever reason, tried to single him out and say, don't talk about him, because it might compromise a real lawsuit. And that's only providing if you can get yourself a freaking lawyer that specializes in that. When in fact, I phoned around, couldn't find one. So you see, it's old okie dokie stuff. But at least he's thinking. And he took the time to, you know what I mean? That's good. I appreciate that a lot. More than what I got from the Attorney General's office, that's for sure. That was a huge disappointment. Honestly, it was a very huge disappointment. I'm not surprised, but I was disappointed. Rhea said, your opponent, that's all par and parcel of the court game. That's where Rhea's good, with separating herself from the trauma that comes out of situations like mine. Right? Because, you know, we're all traumatized. And I'm definitely traumatized because I don't feel safe. Hell no. You gonna tell me to shut up about ShaMay and not acknowledge the fact of what I'm trying to tell you, and you don't even want to try and look at evidence and investigate? What does that say? That tells me that you condone it, that you're getting something from it. Some way, somehow, maybe you figure you can afford to buy something one day. Maybe that's your only reward. I don't know, because I know he's not getting paid for it, people. Don't come to me with your old ancient morals from back in the day when you were young, because it's a new day and the streets are rough out here, right? In terms of, you're supposed to be a judge, you're supposed to be hip to the times, you know? Right? You're supposed to be one step ahead of the criminal, not 5 steps behind, pushing them along and encouraging them to be criminals, okay? You know, or somebody that's in complete denial because they're so old that they can't think anymore, you know, in terms of the critical thinking skills, that anything is possible. There is nothing new under the sun. He was too close-minded to think about corruption. It's not his alley. He's not a criminal lawyer, right? So why would he be interested in crime? He's not. That's not his job. His job is to dismiss cases before they even get to that point. And then try to gaslight you and appease you and make you feel like that, you know, it's okay, you know, you'll be all right, don't worry, you know, there's still good in society, and God forbid, that would never happen, and, you know, just calm down. Yeah, okay. So I basically have been reduced down to just doing videos when I have time, exposing the embalming of ShaMay and sounding like a fantastical while I do it. And the same thing with Sierra and whatever happened with Sierra, because they didn't care about the fake investigation. They didn't care the fact that I never got no information from the cops in writing. Nothing. They don't care about any of that, people. Nothing. That Sonia just kept calling me fantastical. Waste of court's time. It was frivolous, right? You know, just rambling, you know, right? Repeating myself. Just whatever. The only thing she had to say was she cited a whole bunch of court cases talking about other people and whatever their opinions were in terms of a judge, accusing those people of whatever they were doing, and was saying that was me. She made it sound like it was me. Just so they didn't have to talk about John in a deeper sense, or ShaMay in a deeper sense, Andre, Sierra, and then of course they separated Amari out of the pile. Why, people? Amari belongs with the family. His story is just important, but his needs are the greatest. And this guy, this judge, wants to put me on another wild goose chase looking for a lawyer that I will never find. Think about it. We asked if they could appoint legal aid. He said he wasn't in position of that. He couldn't do it. I told him, forget about pro bono. So, it doesn't look good. they'll give me a crumb. They'll, in terms of appointing, yeah, Sonia, she gave me a crumb. She said, oh, in regards to getting Chorney on the birth certificate of Amari as his guardian, I can just simply do that on my own. I don't need the government to help me with that. So I guess they solved that problem, right? And that anything that was going on with Uncle John, I needed to take it up with CIBC Bank because she's under the impression that it's still active. And if I wanted to do anything else outside of that, in regards to ShaMay, I needed to take it directly to Fraser Health Authority, and I told her no, I wouldn't do that. I just wouldn't. I wouldn't, people. I wouldn't. It's the government that oversees the health authorities. It's the government's responsibility. These are material facts. Okay, these are material facts that fall under the Criminal Code of Canada, those legislations and mandates, right? Things that they don't really like to talk about. But maybe I'll find it soon, maybe I'll find it later, I don't know. But it's those ministries, it's the government, the core government that manages the employees because they pay the employees. It doesn't matter if it's under contract, in one lump sum, on a yearly budget, or if it's under the table in a gurney sense, right, with a suitcase. You know what I'm saying? With crooked doctors that are collecting 2 paychecks. Okay, I'm back. I'm inside. It's so hot in here. They had to pick the hottest day of the year. Anyway, let's get back to this counseling session. You know, people, by doing it this way, I had to clear out my camera, right? I was going to come in anyway. Anyway, by what the court is doing, supposedly, okay? And I say that lightly, okay? What they're doing is they're exploiting the public. I just, you know, like, sure, it was convenient that we didn't have to pack up the kids and go to the courthouse and, you know, and just deal with the day. You know, however that day unfolded within those courthouse halls, right? You know what I'm saying? At least in a situation like that, you can mingle with the public and maybe by chance run into somebody that actually cared about your story and maybe wanted to help even in the slightest sense. Okay? Like, you know, by them doing it online, at one point, they wanted me to just do it with headphones because we couldn't sign in with this MS Team for whatever, you know, me, I don't know, right? I don't do live streams. And so anyway, they ended up, Tisha got it going, but it took an hour and a half just to be able to hook in correctly. And of course, that was my problem, but like my fault. But besides that point, you know, and then, but prior to that, though, we had to do the first half by phone. And at one point, they wanted to just do it with one person with headphones on. And we all know, no. So we did it with the phone, right? So that we could all hear it. And even when it came into the MS Team, where you had the judge here and Sonia there, okay? I'm just going to call her Sonia, people, okay? That's her nickname. Just like Andrew the Dragon, this is Sonia, okay? We've got the judge here with Sonia, who technically I don't think is a lawyer because Rio keeps calling her a paralegal. So not quite a lawyer yet, but maybe a lawyer. I don't know. Anyway, Andre, just pipe it down just a bit, okay, while I finish this, right? Andre?
What?
Can you just pipe it down so I can finish this?
Okay, fine.
The judge, Sonia, Rhea, I was here with Tisha holding Kyrie with all the kids running around. Okay? Looking at myself for a minute. Got all blurry there. What kind of courthouse is that? If that's not being isolated and gaslighted and cornered into a box, I don't know what is, people. Right? And then to bring in your feel me good, good old days, morality, once upon a time, long ago, that humanity can do no harm, especially if they work for the government, so that he can just completely refuse acknowledging what I was saying in regards to ShaMay, mainly, and Amari. He not only refused to acknowledge what I was saying about ShaMay, but he refused to acknowledge the vindictiveness of the healthcare workers. Can you hold on a minute? Okay. You know, he silenced ShaMay's story, people. He brought it down to, I don't know what. I just don't know what. And I'm supposed to settle for that and think it's like, just get over it. I'll never get over it, people, until there's justice, until there's acknowledgement, until there's action, until there's investigations that root out the criminals and cleans out the swamp. Because it's irresponsible for that judge to assume that nobody does nothing wrong just because they work for the government, and that they would never do such a terrible thing like they've done, and therefore it becomes fantastical and just a fantasy, which is not a fair judgment, people. And that's why they want you locked up into your houses doing this online, preferably with headphones on, so only you hear it and nobody else, so that you accept it. Because if they feed you the lie enough times, you'll learn to believe it. I'll never believe their lie, people. I won't. And clearly, the government is in control of its workers, whether they're under a health authority or whether they're in the parliament buildings. In terms of where this Sonia came from, right? She came from the parliament buildings. She doesn't represent the public. She's trying to just hold up the status quo, people. Because this is not just about money, although nobody talked about money. That's the interesting thing. Because when I filed my notice of civil claim, you know, relief sought. You know, there was only 3 sections. I didn't even ask for money. I just said, go into Uncle John's lawsuits and figure it out from there. You figure it out. You figure out what's fair. That's why I'm coming to you, right? Because you're supposed to be fair. But there's nothing fair about this, okay?
Are you done?
No, I'm not. Okay, this is important, all right? Like, really important. Because this is real life. And it affects not only our family, but it affects other people's families. By silencing ShaMay, they silence everybody else, because they all become fanatical too when they step up to the plate and tell their stories. Because a judge wants to be like an ostrich and keep his head in the sand and pretend that life hasn't moved since he was a kid, or maybe a young lawyer, or when times were good, when we could actually trust our public union sector. There was a time when there was a higher level of trust compared to what we have today. Okay? That there's no denying. But if you ask the judge if he would agree with you, he'd say, oh, no, we're still in the good old days. No, there are no more good old days. That's the thing. Okay. I'm still clear. He was adamant that he had the flash drive, people. I even showed him the flash drive. I said, no, you can't have the flash drive because your flash drive is right here. This is your flash drive, Your Honor. He says, no, I got a flash drive. Where did he get it from? For a man with no power, how the heck did he get a flash drive? And then have the audacity to act like it meant nothing. Well, I can't really say that because he never gave us a judgment, so I can't assume the man guilty until he puts his foot in his mouth and says dismissed, right? When he says dismissed and dismisses the case, and he's just stalling for time to make it look like he's, you know, contemplating over whatever he's looking at, because he's got a lot to look at, people. He's got a lot to look at, and he's got to really stop and think how fragile what he's holding in his hands and how he could, oh I don't even want to go there with it in terms of destroying it and making it so much harder, just like my son. Right? But worse than my son. Because that's just shit. That's just shit. This man holds lives in his hand. That out there is just shit. Okay, it's just, I can pick through it and put it up for yard sale, whatever. Doesn't matter. It's the principle about what's going on. Because I want to get out of this house too, people, you know. I do. It's just going to take me a little longer to get out of it. I would prefer to get out of it alive, but at the rate things are going, I question that. Okay, so let's focus on what happened. So, you know, in light of, if, you know, how difficult it is to get lawyers to represent you if you're below a certain income level and you have no family support in terms of wealth within the family or within a particular community, right? Then it would be very detrimental for people like me, you know, at the mercy of complete strangers on the internet that chances are you'll never see again, right? That will destroy your life and make it that much harder for you and cloak over their cloud of depression as you have to accept whatever it is those two people forced upon you because of their ignorance or perhaps ego. I say Sonia was full of ego, and the way the judge was acting was more like he was naive and ignorant to the fact that times have changed and he needs to step up his game. But I don't think he wants to step up his game because oftentimes these guys are paid and bought for before you even show up at the door. They're paid to dismiss the case. And then they come up from behind this Sonia. Oh, well, this judge did this and this judge did that, so therefore it made it okay for this judge to do this, and now you're expected to do this because you have to follow that line. That's basically what she was saying. And he's like, well, being that the public union section can do no harm, they're there to give quality health care. They would never hurt a little baby. They would never embalm a body, never mind take out organs illegally. No. So therefore, Sonia must be right. That's not judgment. That's not a fair judgment, people. And then say pictures don't count in terms of what I can show them through my pictures with what little pictures I have of ShaMay, and then match those pictures with like literature, black and white information to support my claims so that a big fish can chomp on it and clean out the swamp. Because there's integrity within the system, something that judge remembers but doesn't realize that perhaps it's not there anymore. We're far beyond it now. You're either a predator or you're a victim. Where is the judge on that one? Is he the victim here because he's naive and wants to stay that way and pretend that bad things don't happen to real people and real families, and because in his day it wasn't like that, so why should it be like that today? Or is he the predator and just wants to keep the status quo and is using that as a lame excuse not to do his job, being that he's a sitting judge that has convinced himself that he has no power, but yet at the same time is whipping out flash drives that technically he shouldn't have, because this is one, it belongs to him. And I couldn't get it to him. So how the heck did he get a flash drive? And he was adamant that he had it. And when we asked him how he got it, he just kind of, and then subject changed. I think Sonia piped in to change the subject. Listen, if the Attorney General gave it to him, a copy of it, I'd be fine with that, people. I'd have no problem. It would be one less problem to solve. But the mystery is, where did it come from? How did he get it? Because as far as I know, whatever I uploaded onto their server through the court registry, the files were too big and they were denied. That was the message I got back after I tried to upload them. So I just assumed Exhibit 3 was null and void because the judge didn't receive the information. But it didn't matter. He said he had it. At this point, I don't know. You see, he got along good with Rhea because Rhea's worked with lawyers before. And, you know, she's not as attached to things like I am in terms of emotional and all this crap. And she knows what judges like to look at in terms of how things are written and that kind of stuff, right? Where I don't know, right? What I think the judge would like isn't necessarily what the judge would like, right? Unless, of course, the judge was looking for something and really wanted to dive deep and, I don't want to say use his critical thinking skills, but kind of bring out the, what is that? Inspector Gadget. You know, if he's an Inspector Gadget looking for some dirt, not on me, people. We already know I'm scandalous, but somewhere where something's nagging at him, you know? That's the kind of way I write. Where Rhea is just material facts. Nothing less, nothing more. Only what you can prove. You can't prove that, so don't just forget about it. It didn't happen. Well, she doesn't say it didn't happen. She just said that they'll never believe me. They don't. But I can't forget about it, people. And that's why at some point I'm going to pick up with those YouTube videos and BitChute videos with ShaMay zooming in on the signs of decomposition and what it means to have a body embalmed for 9 days on a hospital bed while the government completely ignores it and says it's fanatical because I can't prove it, even though they don't even want to look for themselves. They can accuse me of not being able to prove something, but they don't want to prove that it's not real. The burden of proof is on them to prove to me that it didn't happen, people. When I'm saying I can prove to you that it did. And between the two of us, I'm sure we could figure it out. But Sonia's not anywhere on that plateau. She's the jailer in the counseling session, ready with the key to lock you out or lock you in, depending on where she puts you. And that's not justice. You can't feed me to the wolves. Already been there, done that with Andrew the Dragon. Why would I go back with CIBC Bank? Right? So anyway, I would think that the judge will probably just stay with the quota. More than likely will dismiss it because that's what he gets paid for ultimately. Right? Because he's experienced. Regardless of his personal opinions or not. Right? Which shouldn't really make a matter. That make a difference. It's like that paramedic coming to my house. Amari is the way he is because the mother was doing drugs. No, that's not true. Amari is the way he is because of a botched C-section. No, that's not true. She was doing drugs. And he back and forth. Right? Who is this guy to say that? The judge was the same kind of way. Right? In terms of didn't want to acknowledge what I was saying. Didn't matter if it was about Uncle John. Didn't matter if it was about ShaMay. Just didn't matter. Even Sierra, it didn't matter. But he did take the time to try and hear even just a little bit of everybody's story. So for that, I'm grateful. I don't know if it made a difference. You know, it was outside of, you know, it did look like at some point he got out his Inspector Gadget magnifying glass and was trying to figure it out, right? Put it in compartments. He called it a different word. So if he throws it out, we're going to try and appeal it with those material facts, like they said I couldn't donate her organs, but then falsified her medical records by saying that I refused that. That's a material fact. That we can prove because I'm a witness to that. I'm asking where the form is to sign for the eyes, as they're withholding it to me after they told me they were going to give it to me that day when they turned off their machine. Okay? And when it came time to sign the form for the forensic autopsy that I was requesting, I said, okay, where's the form for the eye donation? They refused to give it to me. They said they wouldn't give it to me because their eyes, quote unquote, were contaminated. But in her medical files, it says I refused organ donation. Well, the judge says that couldn't or wouldn't happen because every worker in that hospital, under the guidance and watchful eye of Fraser Health Authority, is the Puritan of pure when it comes to work ethics and would never, ever do no harm, which is a bunch of crock. So for that, you don't drop the ball, people. So, before I'd go in front of a judge to waiver my fees for an appeal to go in front of a 3-panel judge, I'd just flat out pay the $200. And then take it from there, while I'd be plotting and scheming and getting ready for another lawsuit with material facts, wherever those material facts come from. Well, Sonia in the background is saying, oh, but we got the statute of limitation. It could be 1 to 2 years. After 1 year, that's it. You can't come and hold us to account. If you pass your 2-year mark, you can't come and hold us account. But when it comes to the perpetual, ongoing, consecutive gang stalking of a vulnerable family over a period of freaking years, yeah, you can come back. You can come back. And that's what I told the judge. It's not just simply this or simply that or simply. It's a conglomerate of shit that doesn't seem to ever stop. And now they just want me to get used to it and throw away ShaMay. Basically. And her story. To make it easy on them so they can live in the past and be in La La Land. As they reap the reward of that ignorance through corruption. I don't know how to say it any other way, people. Because the only thing that judge would be doing is securing his lot in life when it comes time when his organs start to fail and he needs an organ transplant. He knows he can go off and buy him some. Okay? He makes good money. He's got a big fat bank account. So if his heart goes, or his liver goes, or his gallbladder, or whatever it is that they're putting into other people's bodies to make them live for a few more years, he knows he's good to go. That would be the only reason he would benefit from trying to bury this under the rug, by playing that ignorant card as if nobody does no harm because they signed up with the government to work in a hospital. Okay. So, I gotta get off it. So what we're gonna do now, I'm gonna turn this off. I'm gonna upload this first. What I was doing in front of the rabbit hutch, this, so you get an idea of what kind of happened. Right? And then I'm gonna upload how long it took just to be able to sign in terms of being able to talk to anybody. Of course, can't upload that, right? So that's another thing. They have you doing all this stuff and now the privacy of your home, making you think that they're saving you gas money or an inconvenience or whatever, right? For all you know, they could be sitting at home with pajama pants on with a robe over top of them. Like, you don't know where they're coming in from with their Zooms. Just saying, right? I don't think they're in the courthouse, because if they were in the courthouse, you would be there, right? You'd come to the courthouse. But it is so disenfranchising to do it at home, be isolated like this, being hidden away like a dirty secret, not being able to even talk to nobody because you're stuck at home, never mind in the sweltering heat. As, you know, you're basically being gaslighted, told that you're fanatical and everything else that they want to call you down with, right? And they condone crime, people. I wanted to put the word heinous in front of it, but I settled just for the word crime. They condone it. The Attorney General's office condones crime. I can't say the judge condones crime because he hasn't given a judgment yet. Okay? And if he dismisses it, what? For what reason? Because he wants to ensure that he can buy organs when he needs it, when he gets a little more older. Give him another 10 more years, 5 more years, he's going to need organs, so he wants to make sure that those organs are available, and that's why he's going to dismiss it? Or is it because he's just too afraid, and he doesn't want to rock no boats before he decides to step down and retire? Which one? Maybe both? Maybe he just doesn't want people pointing fingers at him, accusing him of being a troublemaker for exposing it, for bringing it to the surface. To help seek justice, to help make the world a better place like the good old freaking days. Notice that, boo-boo days, right? Being that he's so lost in the past. Lost in the past. There are no good old days. And if there are going to be any good old days, well, you have to earn it. You have to fight to get it back. That's the thing. You have to fight to be able to get it back. But if your opponent wants to be the problem and say, no, you're not, to hell with you. I'm not helping you, the Attorney General's office. I'm not helping you, Miss Chorney. We have no obligation to help you, Miss Chorney, with anything that you got to say. Because that's not our role in society. We just go after criminals that we don't like. The ones that we like, we let them skirt on by. Leave them alone to prosper. Leave them alone to prosper. And then what do you get? You get the predator community and you get the victims. Outside of that, there is no community, people. Okay, that's where they brought me down to. Okay? ShaMay died in vain. And anyone else in her situation, regardless of how they end up in that situation, also died in vain. And they will continue to die in vain. As the government expects them to die in vain.